Drop the tool! Step away from the car, now!
Officer, I'm working. This is my business. Please, just ring the doorbell.
Turn around! Hands behind your head, do it now!
I'm not resisting. I'm just trying to go home alive.
It was a scorching Tuesday afternoon in July 2024 in the affluent suburb of Scottsdale, Arizona. The temperature had already climbed past 105 degrees. The asphalt on the driveways of the multi-million-dollar homes in the Silverleaf community was hot enough to melt the rubber soles of sneakers. Elijah Vance, a 17-year-old high school senior with a 4.0 GPA and a dream of attending Stanford University for engineering, was wiping sweat from his forehead. He was not robbing a house. He was not casing a joint. He was meticulously applying a ceramic coating to a vintage 1967 Porsche 911 that sat in the driveway of one of the neighborhood's most prestigious residents. Elijah had started his mobile detailing business, Vance Auto Spa, 2 years prior to save money for tuition, so his single mother wouldn't have to work 3 jobs. But none of his hard work, his straight A's, or his legitimate business license mattered to the woman watching him from behind her blinds across the street. And it certainly didn't matter to the police officer who was currently aiming a taser at his chest. Before we unravel the rest of this story, I have to ask, where are you watching from? Please drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. This story exposes a reality that many try to ignore, and we need your help to spread the truth. Elijah was a perfectionist. That was why his business had grown so fast. He didn't just wash cars, he restored them. He understood the chemistry of paint correction. He knew the difference between a swirl mark and a scratch. He had spent his weekends watching YouTube tutorials and practicing on his mother's old Toyota until he was confident enough to charge clients. He carried himself with a maturity beyond his years because he knew that as a young black man entering gated communities, he had to be beyond reproach. He wore a uniform, a collared polo shirt with his logo embroidered on it, khaki pants even in the heat, and clean work boots. He always introduced himself to the security guards at the gate. He did everything right. On this particular day, he had landed his biggest client yet. Mr. Richard Sterling was a retired software CEO who collected classic European sports cars. He had heard about Elijah from a neighbor and decided to give the kid a shot at his prized Porsche. Elijah had arrived at 800 a.m. sharp. He had set up his environmentally friendly water reclamation mats. He had organized his bottles of compounds and polishes. He had been working for 6 hours straight, barely taking a break, lost in the rhythm of the work. Across the street lived Mrs. Patricia Halloway. She was the self-appointed guardian of the neighborhood, the head of the Architectural Review Committee, and a woman who viewed anyone she didn't recognize as an existential threat. She had been watching Elijah since he pulled up in his work van, a 2010 Ford Econoline that was old but clean. To Mrs. Halloway, the van didn't look like a business vehicle. It looked like a getaway car. She didn't see a young entrepreneur carefully taping off the rubber trim of a classic car. She saw a suspicious male tampering with a vehicle that she knew belonged to Mr. Sterling, who she thought was out of town. At 2:15 p.m., Mrs. Halloway picked up her phone. The recording of this call would later be played in a packed town hall meeting, silencing a room of 300 people. Her voice was trembling with a manufactured fear. 911. What is your emergency? Yes, I need police immediately at 4402 Pinnacle Peak Way. There is a man in the driveway trying to break into a car. He has tools. He's been there for hours, probably trying to hotwire it or strip parts. Ma'am, is the individual threatening anyone? No, but he looks dangerous. He's looking into the garage windows. He's casing the house. He definitely doesn't belong in this neighborhood. Please hurry. She omitted the fact that the garage door was open because Elijah needed access to a power outlet. She omitted the fact that he was washing the car, not stripping it. She omitted the fact that he had a sign next to his van that read, Vance Auto Spa, Mobile Detailing. She saw what she wanted to see, and she used the police as her personal weapon to remove it. Within 12 minutes, the silence of the cul-de-sac was shattered. Officer Mark Davidson, a 15-year veteran with a history of aggression complaints that had been swept under the rug by the police, Union screeched his cruiser to a halt in front of the Sterling residence. A second cruiser, driven by a rookie officer named Sarah Jenkins, pulled in behind him. Elijah had his headphones in, listening to an audiobook on mechanical engineering. He was polishing the rear fender, his focus absolute. He didn't hear the tires. He didn't hear the car doors slam. The first thing he registered was a shadow falling over his work area. He turned around expecting to see Mr. Sterling coming out to check on the progress. Instead, he saw Officer Davidson, red-faced and sweating hand resting on his holstered weapon, shouting commands that Elijah couldn't hear over the narration in his ears. Elijah pulled his earbuds out, confusion washing over him. "I'm sorry, officer. Can I help you?" "I said get away from the vehicle. Drop the weapon," Davidson screamed. "Weapon, this is a polisher. It's for the paint." Elijah held up the Roops polisher, a tool that cost $500. "Drop it now." Davidson drew his taser. Elijah's heart hammered against his ribs. He remembered the talk his mother had given him when he got his driver's license. Do not make sudden moves. Narrate your actions. Keep your hands visible. Stay alive. Elijah slowly bent his knees and placed the polisher on the ground. He stood up, showing his palms. "Okay, it's on the ground. My name is Elijah Vance. I own Vance Auto Spa. Mr. Sterling hired me to detail this car. Turn around. Hands behind your head. Interlace your fingers." Davidson was not listening. He was operating on adrenaline and the false narrative provided by the dispatcher. "Officer, please, if you just ring the doorbell, Mr. Sterling is inside. He can verify everything. I'm not asking you again." Davidson holstered the taser and grabbed Elijah by the shoulder, spinning him around with enough force to nearly knock him off balance. He kicked Elijah's legs apart. "Spread 'em." Elijah felt the cold steel of the handcuffs click onto his wrists. The metal burned in the Arizona heat. He felt a tear of humiliation slide down his cheek. He was the captain of the debate team. He was a volunteer at the food bank. He was a business owner. And here he was being treated like a violent felon in front of the very house he was hired to beautify. Officer Jenkins, the rookie, looked uncomfortable. She walked over to the van and saw the signage. She saw the organized bottles of soap and wax. She saw the pressure washer. "Mark," she said, her voice hesitant. "He's got a business license on the dashboard. This looks like a legit setup." "Don't tell me how to do my job, Jenkins," Davidson snapped. "Thieves use fake covers all the time. He's stripping the car. Look at the tape on the windows. He's trying to pop the glass. That's masking tape," Elijah said, his voice shaking. "It protects the rubber trim from the compound. Please, just ask the owner." "Shut up. You have the right to remain silent." Davidson shoved Elijah toward the patrol car. The back seat was a plastic oven. He pushed Elijah inside and slammed the door. Elijah sat in the back of the cruiser, the air conditioning barely making a dent in the heat. He watched through the plexiglass divider as Davidson began to tear apart his van. The officer wasn't searching for evidence. He was destroying property. He threw the bottles of expensive ceramic coating onto the pavement, shattering them. He dumped the bucket of microfiber towels onto the dirty street. He opened the glove box and tossed Elijah's school textbooks onto the asphalt. Mrs. Halloway watched from her window, a satisfied smirk on her face. She felt safe. She felt she had done her civic duty. She had no idea that she had just lit a fuse that would blow her comfortable life apart. Inside the Sterling house, Richard Sterling had been on a conference call in his soundproof home office. He hadn't heard the sirens. When the call ended, he walked to the kitchen to get a glass of water and glanced out the front window to check on Elijah's progress. He saw the police cars. He saw Elijah's van ransacked. He saw his Porsche surrounded. And he saw Elijah, the polite, hard-working kid he had met that morning, handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser. Richard Sterling was 62 years old. He was a man who had built a technology empire from a garage in Silicon Valley. He had money, he had power, and he had a very low tolerance for incompetence. He didn't walk out of his front door. He stormed out. "What the hell is going on here?" Sterling's voice boomed across the driveway. Officer Davidson looked up from where he was rummaging through Elijah's tool chest. "Sir, please step back. We apprehended a suspect attempting to strip your vehicle. We intercepted him before he could do major damage." "Strip my vehicle?" Sterling looked at the Porsche. He saw the half-finished polish job, the pristine work. "He is detailing my vehicle, you moron. I hired him." Davidson paused. "We received a call that he was breaking in." "Who called?" "Was it me? Did I call you?" Sterling walked right up to Davidson, ignoring the officer's hand drifting to his belt. "That young man is my contractor. You are currently trespassing on my property and harassing my employee. Get him out of that car immediately." "Sir, we have to verify." "Verify this." Sterling pulled out his phone and pulled up the Ring doorbell footage. He showed Davidson the video of him greeting Elijah at 8:00 a.m., shaking his hand and giving him the key to the Porsche. "He has been here all day. Now release him or I will have your badge on my desk by tomorrow morning. Do you know who I am? I play golf with the mayor every Sunday." Davidson's face went from red to pale. He realized the mistake, but instead of apologizing, his ego kicked in. He couldn't just back down. He was uncooperative. He refused to drop a weapon. "He was a polisher." Sterling laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound. "You thought a dual-action polisher was a weapon. You are either blind or incompetent. Uncuff him." Officer Jenkins didn't wait for Davidson's permission. She opened the cruiser door and helped Elijah out. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Are you hurt?" Elijah couldn't speak. He just nodded, rubbing his wrists where the metal had dug in. He walked over to his van. He saw the broken bottles, the ruined towels, the textbooks splayed in the dirt, hundreds of dollars of equipment destroyed, years of work treated like trash. Sterling walked over to Elijah and put a hand on his shoulder. "Elijah, I am so sorry. This is unacceptable." "It's okay, Mr. Sterling," Elijah said, his voice quiet. I think I should go." "You aren't going anywhere until we fix this," Sterling said. He turned to Davidson. "I want your name. I want your badge number. And I want the name of the supervisor on shift. And you—" He pointed to Mrs. Holloway's house where the curtain had just twitched. "I know exactly who made that call." The police left Davidson sullen and silent, Jenkins apologetic. Elijah tried to clean up the mess, but Sterling stopped him. "Leave it. I'll pay for all of it. Double." Elijah went home that night and collapsed into his mother's arms. He cried for an hour. He felt dirty. He felt criminal. He felt like no matter how hard he worked, the world would only see a suspect. His mother, a woman of iron will, held him and told him that his dignity was internal, not external. But she also told him they were going to fight. The next morning, Mr. Sterling made good on his word. He didn't just pay double. He replaced every single piece of equipment with top-of-the-line gear. But he didn't stop there. Sterling posted the Ring doorbell footage of the arrest on his LinkedIn and Twitter accounts. He tagged the Scottsdale Police Department. He tagged the mayor. He wrote a caption that read, "This is what entrepreneurship looks like in America today. A 17-year-old honor student hired to detail my car, handcuffed and humiliated because a neighbor couldn't stand seeing a black boy working hard. Shame on the caller and shame on the officers who couldn't see past their own bias." The post went viral. Not just local viral, global viral. Within 24 hours, it had 2 million views. The video of Elijah being spun around and handcuffed while holding a polishing tool sparked outrage. News vans camped out on Pinnacle Peak Way. But this time, they weren't reporting on a crime. They were reporting on injustice. Elijah's phone blew up. But amidst the noise, he received a message from a lawyer in Phoenix who specialized in civil rights cases. She offered to represent him pro bono. Then came the investigation into the caller. The police released the 911 tapes after public pressure mounted. Mrs. Holloway's voice was instantly recognizable to everyone in the neighborhood. The Silverleaf Homeowners Association, usually quiet and reserved, held an emergency meeting. They were furious. Not because they were all saints, but because the bad publicity was dragging down property values. Over 300 residents packed the community center. Mr. Sterling stood up and played the 911 call over the speakers. When it finished, he pointed to Mrs. Holloway, who was sitting in the back trying to look small. "We have a code of conduct in this community," Sterling said. "It talks about safety and respect. Patricia, you weaponized the police against a child. You put his life in danger because you were nervous. You are not the victim here. You are the aggressor." Mrs. Holloway tried to defend herself, claiming she was just being vigilant. The room booed her. The HOA board voted to strip her of her position on the Architectural Review Committee. But the social consequences were far worse. Her friends stopped inviting her to Bridge Club. Her neighbors stopped waving. She became a pariah in her own kingdom. Within 6 months, a "for sale" sign appeared on her lawn. She moved to a different state, claiming the Arizona heat was too much, but everyone knew the truth. She ran away from the mirror the community held up to her face. The Scottsdale Police Department was forced to conduct an internal affairs investigation. Officer Davidson's file was opened, and the pattern of behavior that tumbled out was undeniable. He had a history of escalating nonviolent situations, particularly with minorities. Under the glare of the national spotlight, the department couldn't protect him. He was fired for violating department policy on de-escalation and for the destruction of private property during an illegal search. Officer Jenkins was reprimanded but kept her job. She eventually became an advocate for reform within the department, using Elijah's case as a training module for new recruits. But the most beautiful part of the story was what happened to Elijah. A GoFundMe page was set up by a complete stranger who saw the video. The goal was $5,000 to cover his equipment and maybe some tuition. It hit $5,000 in an hour. By the end of the week, it had reached $150,000. Elijah didn't buy a new car. He didn't buy clothes. He sat down with his mom and Mr. Sterling, who had become a mentor to him. "I don't need all this for school," Elijah said. "I have scholarships coming in now because of my grades." "Then what do you want to do with it?" Sterling asked. "I want to help other kids who want to work but can't afford the startup costs," Elijah said. They founded the Vance Initiative for Young Entrepreneurs. The fund provided microgrants to teenagers in low-income areas who wanted to start businesses, lawn care, detailing, graphic design, coding. Elijah personally vetted the applications. Stanford University didn't just accept him, they offered him a full presidential scholarship. In his admissions essay, he didn't write about his grades or his debate team victories. He wrote about the day he was handcuffed in a driveway. He wrote, "I learned that day that competence is not a shield against prejudice. I learned that I can do everything right and still be wronged. But I also learned that for every person who calls the police out of hate, there are 10 who will stand up out of love. I will be an engineer not just to build machines, but to build bridges over the gaps that divide us." Elijah's business, Vance Auto Spa, continued to operate while he was in college, managed by 2 of his friends whom he trained. It became the premier detailing service in Scottsdale. People hired them not just because they wanted a clean car, but because they wanted to support the young men in the vans. 3 years later, Elijah was a junior at Stanford. He was home for the summer. He drove his van, now a new Mercedes Sprinter with a professional wrap, to Mr. Sterling's house for a maintenance wash on the Porsche. As he was setting up, a police cruiser rolled slowly down the street. Elijah froze. The trauma never fully goes away. The officer inside was young, someone Elijah didn't recognize. The cruiser stopped. The window rolled down. Elijah braced himself. "Here we go again," he thought. The officer smiled. "Hey, you're Elijah Vance, right?" "Yes, sir," Elijah said cautiously. "I just wanted to say, I use your case in my training at the academy. We watched the video. It taught me a lot about what not to do. I just wanted to shake your hand." The officer got out. He didn't put his hand on his gun. He extended it. Elijah shook it. "Keep up the good work," the officer said, and drove away. Elijah watched him go. He took a deep breath of the hot desert air. He looked at the Porsche gleaming in the sun. He looked at the house across the street where Mrs. Holloway used to live, now occupied by a young family with a Black Lives Matter sign in the window. He picked up his polisher, turned it on, and got back to work. So what is the valuable lesson we must take away from this story? The lesson is the multiplier effect of integrity versus the destructive cost of bias. Mrs. Halloway and Officer Davidson operated from a place of fear and bias. They assumed the worst, and in doing so they destroyed their own reputations and careers. Their actions were a net negative for the world. They sought to subtract Elijah's dignity, but they only succeeded in subtracting their own standing in the community. On the other hand, Elijah and Mr. Sterling operated from a place of integrity. Elijah maintained his composure, even when humiliated. He didn't fight back with violence. He fought back with excellence and truth. Mr. Sterling didn't just watch. He acted. He used his privilege to shield someone vulnerable. The lesson for you watching is this. You are either a Halloway or a Sterling. When you see something that challenges your worldview, do you react with fear and call for authority to suppress it? Or do you lean in with curiosity and support? When you witness injustice, do you close your blinds or do you open your door? Elijah's success wasn't just about hard work. It was about a community deciding that his hard work mattered more than his neighbor's prejudice. In your own life, be the person who opens the door. Be the person who speaks up. Because one phone call made out of hate can start a fire, but one act of courage can build a future.